Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, and radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? A little Mertz magic as the Florida Gators begin their 2023 campaign against the Utah Utes. Salt Lake City, what we expect out of the Gators, not only in their opener, but throughout the course of the year, and why this team may be better than last year, even though they may be worse overall. I'll explain. Going to pivot into that. Also, college football playoff commissioners, the conference committees that line this thing up have kind of hit the pause button a little bit here as they try to figure out what's next. Basically saying, hey, we can't proceed with this thing until the ACC gets this figured out with what's left out of the Pac-12. And I can't believe I'm about ready to say this, but the raid on the Pac-12 actually helps small schools. The raid on the Pac-12, as the playoff is currently constructed actually helped, group of five? I'll tell you how. And also, Wander Franco in the news today. Second confirmed case for Wander Franco. Why any chance and hope of him playing in 2023 is gone. We already kind of knew that, and what's next as the dominoes start to fall on this one. Again, Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, the Bar, Harp on Sports, the Facebook page, and of course, harponsports.com. Okay, Gators getting ready to take on Utah, and last year pulled off a gigantic upset at home. Anthony Richardson played phenomenal football, came rising through a couple of big picks, and the Gators snuck out of the swamp with a win. And then, the next week laid an egg against Kentucky, and then struggled against USF, and then just had this weird type of season that was up, down, up, down, up, down. Well, now, take on Utah. Utah, no Cam Rising. Not expected to play. The Gators, the way Florida is built this year, they're built to win games like the one against Utah. They are. Two dynamic running backs, a quarterback that can manage an offense, and a defense that can travel. I wrote down 24. Here at the beginning of the year, channeling my inner Kiefer Sutherland. 24. Why? 24 is the magic number. If the Gators' defense can hold opponents to 24 points or less, they'll have a winning record. On average. Now, there's a couple games that they could hold their opponent to 24 points and still lose. The LSUs of the world, the Georgias of the world. Heck, against Utah, they may hold Utah to 24. They could lose 28 to 24. 24 is the magic number for the Gators this year. Usually you'd sit there and say, well, it's in the teens. No, it's not in the teens. 24. The way this team plays defense and the way that they run the ball, 24 is a magic number. Get my pen. But as I watch this unfold, with Montrell Johnson, Trevor Etienne, you're bringing back 1,600 yards on the ground. Anthony Richardson tend to run the ball a little bit more out of the pocket. They lose that dynamic aspect, but that means what? That means Graham Mertz may stay back there and may deliver, more dimes throughout the course of the field. There have been past instances where you lose a talent like this and the team may be better the next year. And again, I'm about ready to give you some examples, and I'm giving you some big all-time great quarterbacks that when they left, the team actually was better the next year. When Peyton Manning left Tennessee, they won the national title the next year with T. Martin. Bizarre, strange, but it happened. Weird. Kind of one of those weird things that sometimes the team got better. It happened at Michigan. Tom Brady, although you could say that he was utilized wrong, Tom Brady leaves Michigan the next year. More successful season. Kind of these strange anomalies that occur throughout the courses of college football. Not all the time. But you can go back through and look. It happens. Was it Kirk Cousins? Kirk Cousins leaves Michigan State. Then they go to the Rose Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but there's some elite quarterbacks that have left schools and, or at least top 10, top 15 draft picks that have left schools, and the next year they're better, even though that talent is gone. So we have seen it happen in the past. Now, I kind of look at this Gator football team and what's happened with Billy Napier. It's the active surgery. The active surgery is hurting yourself to heal yourself. You have to cut yourself open. Got to, shave some tendons, crack some bones sometimes. That's what surgery is, right? It's the act of hurting yourself to heal yourself. And he had to regrow this thing. He had to tear it down. It's like when you come into a house. Think about this. When you remodel a house, you come in and you're like, okay, we got to knock down the bathroom. We got to rip the tub out. Okay, we got to strip the walls. We got to rip up the carpeting, rip up the floor. When you're doing that, if you walk in, you're like, oh my God, you're tearing this place apart. We're remodeling it. Our office is getting remodeled right now at work. Wires everywhere. But you know what the end result is. You got to tear it down before you build it up. And that's what Billy Napier did. Now the question is, how healed are they? When they take the bandages off against Utah Thursday night, how healed are they? What do we see? And look, stability is there. He's got a heck of a recruiting class coming in. This team went 6-6 last year, got dusted against Oregon State. Got dusted for the second time in 3 years with a bowl game. Actually, when you think about it from Florida's perspective, it's been a while since they won a bowl game. Correct? Losing to what? Getting drilled by Oklahoma, then not going to one, then losing to, sorry, they went to one, got drilled by Oklahoma, then lost to UCF, and then last year getting drilled by Oregon State. To me, if this Gator team can get to a bowl game and win it this year, it's a successful year. So as I tell you, 7-6. If they go 7-5 and go to a bowl game and get railroaded again, all right. I went through and looked at this. There's 4 games on the schedule. 4 games on the schedule. If they can win one of them, now I'm counting, beating Missouri. I'm counting beating Vanderbilt. There's 4 games on the schedule. If they can win one of them, okay, you can stomach it. Those 4 games are Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Florida State. If they win one of those 4 games, have a shot at a winning season. LSU, Florida State, Georgia, Tennessee. They win one of those 4, got a shot at a winning record. Legitimate shot. They lose all 4 of those, now you're starting to pucker up, right? You lose all 4 of those games, now you're talking about having to win at Utah. You have Arkansas, who you have to play. It's a home game, but still, that's a decent football team. Then you start throwing in like curveballs like, okay, what about at South Carolina? It's a team that was playing well at the end of the year last year. And then Kentucky. The 2 gimmies on the schedule are McNeese State and Charlotte. Everything else up for grabs. So again, those 4 games, pick off one of them, going to have a winning record. Florida State, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU. I have Florida going 7-5. I think they're a 7-5 football team. What does that do? Does that get them to the Outback Bowl? Possibly. Maybe Music City Bowl. Something along those lines. I think they're a 7-5 football team. So there you go. I was looking for giggles, for fun. I went through and looked at the other schools in the conference, or schools in the conference. I've done my college football predictions per conference. It's my last podcast. But in the state of Florida, I have Florida State this year going 10-2. Look at their schedule. Look where they play teams. I think Florida State's a 10-2 football team, and I think Miami's 8-4. So the U 8-4, Miami. As Mario Cristobal starts to rebuild that thing, it's going to take him a couple years too. He's got his work cut out for him like Napier did at Florida. And again, I think Florida State, Mike Norvell and company win double digits this year. Probably find themselves at a legitimate crack at a New Year's 6 game. Okay. Winning the conference, I still think it. better quarterbacks. I like North Carolina. I remember Clemson in the ACC championship game. Single slide conference now. Something else that I saw when it comes to college football, basically they pump in the brakes here on the college football playoff. Is they're talking about reevaluating it. Why? Because the raid on the raid on the big conference, the Pac-12, the big raid, has strengthened small schools. Here's what the original plan was. Okay, when they went to 12, the original plan was 6 conference champs, the highest ranked 6 conference champs, and 6 at-larges. You're like, oh, okay, that's fair. 6 conference champs, 6 at-larges. That's when you had a Power 5. You remove the Pac-12 from the equation. Now what you've done is and this is what the design of this was. It's like, well, we'll throw a bone to a group of 5. We'll guarantee them a spot in the playoff. Is what they were doing. That's what a conference champ guaranteed, 6 conference champs guaranteed did. Because you had the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 10. They were going to get their 5. And then the highest ranked conference champion over the course of the last few years. Who could that have been? Central Florida. Houston. Those are the 2 that spring to mind. I mean, you're talking 9 years ago now, but like the Boise States of the world. It's like, oh, we'll throw them a bone. The problem is once these conferences started to raid the Pac-12, now you've only got 4 major conferences. So that means 2 of the group of 5 get bids, right? If you're going to say, if the Pac-12 disbands, that means there's 2 seats at the table for the little guy. So now they're talking about, well, we may have to go back to, was it 5 at large or 5 solid spots and 7 at larges. This is going to be interesting, isn't it? They rated they rated the Pac-12, tore it apart, 6 and 6. But now that you only maybe have 4, and who knows what the Pac-12 does? If the Pac-12 decides, you know what, we're going to be able to weather the storm here. We're going to raid the Mountain West, maybe steal a couple teams from the American, and we're going to stay solvent. Okay, you're still taking the 6 high, so the Pac-12 champ then enters the fray is not a Power 5, Power 4, but between a Power 4 and a group of 5. Your group of 5 is what? The MAC, the Sun Belt, the American, Conference USA, and Mountain West. And potentially the Pac-12. Or 10 or whatever it ends up being. I just thought this was interesting. The college football playoff plan. Now they're like, well, we got to wait and see. We got to let the dust settle here. We got to let the dust settle with the ACC before we figure out what we're going to do. Because they're going to have to reevaluate this thing. Because let's face it, the group of 5 is never getting multiple teams in here. And you got to throw Notre Dame to the mix as well that can enter as an at-large. There's never going to be a situation. What this was like a little, here's a little carrot. They kind of did that when they went to the New Year's 6. It's like, okay, well, the highest ranked non-Power 5 team, they get to go. And then you had years where it was Cincinnati, Western Michigan. I forgot about Cincinnati last couple of years. So, but now that they're in the Big 12, the dynamic changes a little bit on this. Oh, we're going to reevaluate this. Of course you are. College football playoff realizing, whoopsie daisy here. The rating of the Pac-12 has actually strengthened the group of 5's foothold when it comes to conference availability when it comes to the college football playoff. So how about that? So when I saw that, I got a kick out of that. And well, what are they going to end up doing? Come on, we know what they're going to end up doing. They're going to shifting to this 5 and 7 method. 5 highest ranked conference, or the 5 conference champions. 5 highest ranked conference champions and 7 at large bids. Because then they get their Power 4. And then, if this happens, if those 4 teams stay put in the Pac-12, which I don't think they do, but let's say they do. Let's say Washington State, Oregon State, Stanford, and Cal somehow work out a plan and they're going to yank some teams away from the Mountain West and somehow figure this thing out. Then all of a sudden, you're the MAC and the Sun Belt. You went from glory right now where you're going to have the MAC, Sun Belt, American, Mountain West, Conference USA. 2 of those conference champs are going to make it every year. To maybe none. Because it's going to be tough for a Mountain West champion to outflank a Stanford or, you know what I mean? And tradition, it's going to be tough. We'll see. We'll see how that goes, but I thought that was fascinating. We'll see. No timeline with this. And when's it supposed to kick in? It's supposed to kick in 2 years? We got 2 more years of 4, then we're supposed to go to 12? And it's going to have to, whatever the counts. But here's the thing, it's never going to stop. If the Pac-12 can become solvent, then okay, but they're going to be constantly ripping at each other. So the only stability you're going to have is instability. I want to wrap with this. It's one of these situations now that you can kind of start to see the writing on the wall here a little bit. Wander Franco hadn't played a baseball game in over a month. And we find out that they're now investigating, now confirmed, a second alleged minor in the Dominican Republic with the Wander Franco saga. And, he's been placed on administrative leave. He was placed on administrative leave last week. We knew with one case, they could have solved it maybe or had a conclusion near the end of September. And at that point, if you're the Rays, do you want to try a guy out there? Could you imagine if Wander Franco would have won like the MVP of the World Series? So, Major League Baseball sitting there, okay, he's on administrative leave, we'll park him over there for a while. Well, now you have a second alleged victim that they're discussing. And in reading the story, it said they plan to speak with her here in the next few upcoming weeks. Gang, it's September. 23, if there's any doubt, gone completely now. And baseball's actually handling this correctly. That's what football should have done with the Ray Rice saga. As these things go on, and the NFL did create this. After the whole Ray Rice thing with Adrian Peterson, it was the commissioner's list. Okay, we're going to put you over here while we investigate this thing, and we'll figure out what's going on. There's accusations against you. You're going to have to go away for a while. My gut tells me right now Wander Franco never plays for the Tampa Bay Rays again. I don't know if he ever plays professional baseball again. You'd kind of sit here and say yes, maybe. But Trevor Bauer, career over. Second victim, going to talk here in the next few weeks. Remember, Trevor Bauer missed 196 games before he went bye-bye. Who's going to bring you in? Who's going to bring you in? And all the shenanigans and everything that was taking place this year, they talked about him in the clubhouse, being a bad teammate. Flipping the ball didn't bother me. Not as much as it bothered other people. But, the productivity problem, it's a juggling act. So Wander Franco's future, it's serious jeopardy now as a second confirmed alleged victim announced in the Dominican Republic. I know. Happy note to end on, right? Yeah, happy note. But the big thing is Gators, Utah. I think Gators go 7-5 this year. I think they lose to Utah. I think Utah covers. I think what happened last year, Utah wasn't prepared. Now Florida heads out there. The altitude, I think some things are made into a big deal when it comes to that. But I saw Utah's defense last year brutally destroy USC, who had, I know they hurt and banged up Caleb Williams, but that Utah defense is just rough. And I just have a tough time seeing Florida scoring in the mid-20s. I think you're looking at probably 28-21, something along those lines. Florida's going to be a 7-5 football team. Miami 8-4. Florida State 10-2. There you go. Harp on Sports, The Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports, Twitter at Harp on Sports, Instagram. Harp on Sports, auditory route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Harp on Sports YouTube page, YouTube channel, The Bar. Harp on Sports, the Facebook page. And of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.